At the center of this tragic story were three individuals whose lives became inextricably intertwined. Roger Lewis, a charismatic local businessman, Adela Green, a devoted elementary school teacher, and Erica Wood, a newcomer with a mysterious past. Their fates collided in a perfect storm of desire, jealousy, and deceit that would leave two of them dead and the third forever changed. Roger Lewis was born and raised in Flint, the only child of Kelsey and Xavier Lewis. From an early age, it was clear that Roger was destined for success. His father, a prominent local attorney, instilled in him a strong work ethic and an unwavering ambition. His mother, a former beauty queen turned socialite, taught him the art of charm and social grace. Growing up, Roger excelled in both academics and athletics. He was captain of the high school football team, president of the student council, and valedictorian of his graduating class. After high school, Roger attended an Ivy League university where he studied business and economics. Behind his polished exterior, however, lay a calculating mind and an insatiable hunger for control, traits that would eventually lead to his downfall. But there was another side of Roger Lewis that few people saw. Behind his appealing smile and easy charm was a calculating intellect with an unquenchable desire for control. He was an expert manipulator, adept at spotting people's flaws and manipulating them for personal gain. Roger saw relationships as transactions in both his professional and personal lives, always looking for what he could get out of them. Regardless all his accomplishments, Roger was never pleased. He sought constant approval and attention, which showed itself in a series of romantic encounters. He was known as a ladies' man, leaving a trail of broken hearts behind him. But as he entered his mid-30s, Roger began to feel the urge to settle down, or at least outwardly. He knew that having a wife would enhance his image as a respectable businessman and pillar of the community. It was with this mindset that Roger entered into relationships with both Adela Green and Erica Wood. In Adela, he saw the perfect candidate for the role of Mrs. Lewis, attractive, well-liked, and from a good family. Erica, on the other hand, represented excitement and passion, a secret indulgence he had no intention of giving up. Little did Roger know that his carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down, set in motion by the very women he thought he could control. Adela Green was the epitome of the girl next door. Born and raised in Flint, she was the middle child in a family of 5, with 2 older brothers and 2 younger sisters. Her parents, Michael and Linda Green, were pillars of the community. Her father was the town's beloved family doctor, and her mother was a long-time volunteer at the local animal shelter. Adela's childhood was marked by warmth and stability. The Green household was always bustling with activity, filled with laughter and the aroma of her mother's home-cooked meals. This nurturing environment shaped Adela into a compassionate and empathetic young woman, always ready to lend a helping hand or a listening ear to those in need. Upon completing her degree, Adela secured a position teaching 3rd grade at Flint Elementary School. It was at a local charity event organized to raise funds for the school's new library that Adela first met Roger Lewis. She was immediately drawn to his charisma and confident demeanor. Their courtship was a whirlwind romance that seemed plucked from the pages of a fairy tale. Roger wooed Adela with grand gestures, surprise weekend getaways, lavish gifts and romantic dinners at upscale restaurants. For Adela, who had always led a relatively simple life, the attention was intoxicating. She fell deeply in love, believing she had found her soulmate. Erica Wood arrived in Flint like a gust of wind, stirring up the quiet town with her mysterious past and alluring presence. Unlike Adela and Roger, Erica was an outsider, having grown up in a series of foster homes across the state of New York. Her childhood was marked by instability and loneliness, experiences that shaped her into a complex and often unpredictable adult. Born to a teenage mother who struggled with addiction, Erica was placed in the foster care system at the age of 3. Over the next 15 years, she bounced from one home to another, never staying in one place long enough to form lasting connections. This transient lifestyle left Erica with a deep-seated fear of abandonment and a desperate need for love and acceptance. Despite the challenges of her upbringing, Erica was fiercely intelligent and ambitious. She excelled in school, using her studies as an escape from the chaos of her personal life. Her academic success eventually earned her a scholarship to a prestigious university in New York City, where she studied psychology. After graduation, Erica worked as a marketing executive in Manhattan for several years. She was successful in her career, but her personal life was a series of short-lived, tumultuous relationships. Each failed romance left her feeling more empty and desperate for connection. It was in the wake of a particularly painful breakup that Erica decided to leave the city behind and start fresh. She had inherited a modest sum of money from a former foster mother who had shown her particular kindness, and she used this windfall to buy a small cottage on the outskirts of Flint. Erica was drawn to the town's picturesque charm and the promise of a simpler life. Upon her arrival in Flint, Erica quickly caught the attention of the locals. Her striking looks and big city sophistication made her stand out in the small town. She found work as a consultant for local businesses, using her marketing expertise to help them expand their reach. It was at one of these consulting jobs that Erica first encountered Roger Lewis. The attraction between them was immediate and electric. In Roger, Erica saw everything she had ever wanted: success, stability, and the promise of love. For the first time in her life, she allowed herself to hope for a happy ending. As Erica and Roger began their clandestine affair, she convinced herself that she had finally found her place in the world. She threw herself into the relationship with the desperation of someone who had never known true belonging. However, Erica's fragile sense of security would soon be shattered by the revelation of Roger's engagement to Adela. This betrayal would trigger all of Erica's deepest fears and insecurities, setting in motion a tragic chain of events that would leave an indelible mark on the town of Flint. As summer turned to fall in Flint, the lives of Roger, Adela, and Erica became increasingly entangled in a complex web of desire, deceit, and jealousy. Roger, ever the skilled manipulator, carefully navigated his relationships with both women, feeding each of them just enough attention and affection to keep them invested. With Adela, Roger played the role of the devoted fiancé. He attended local events by her side, charmed her family at Sunday dinners, and made grand plans for their future together. Adela basked in the glow of their engagement, excitedly sharing details of their upcoming wedding with anyone who would listen. Meanwhile, Roger's encounters with Erica took place in the shadows. They met in out-of-the-way restaurants in neighboring towns or at Erica's secluded cottage. During these stolen moments, Roger showered Erica with the passion and intensity that he carefully held back from Adela. He fed Erica's hopes with vague promises of a future together, always with the caveat that he needed time to handle things with Adela. As the weeks passed, tension began to build between Adela and Erica. Even though Adela remained unaware of the true nature of Erica's relationship with Roger, the two women often found themselves at the same local events, with Erica's presence invariably drawing Roger's attention away from his fiancée. Adela, trusting and naive, initially tried to befriend Erica, sensing the newcomer's loneliness. She invited Erica to girls' nights out and community functions, unwittingly providing more opportunities for Roger and Erica to cross paths. Erica, consumed by her feelings for Roger and racked with guilt over betraying Adela's friendly overtures, became increasingly volatile. Her behavior swung between overly solicitous towards Adela and barely concealed hostility. These mood swings did not go unnoticed by the townspeople, who began to speculate about the source of Erica's apparent instability. Roger observed the growing friction between the two women with a mixture of anxiety and satisfaction. While he worried about his carefully constructed double life unraveling, he also reveled in the knowledge that two beautiful women were competing for his affections. As autumn proceeded, and the date of Roger and Adela's wedding approached, The situation became increasingly intolerable. Erica's requests for Roger to leave Adela were increasingly frequent and frantic, while Adela remained blissfully unaware of the storm developing around her. Little did they know that their activities over the next 6 months would shatter Flint's tranquil image and forever ruin their lives. On a crisp October morning, the day of Roger and Adela's wedding arrived. The entire town of Flint seemed to be in attendance, filling the picturesque white church to capacity. Adela, radiant in a classic white gown, walked down the aisle on her father's arm, her face beaming with joy and love. Roger stood at the altar, outwardly the picture of a happy groom, but those who knew him well might have noticed a flicker of unease in his eyes, a tension in his shoulders that belied his calm exterior. As he recited his vows, promising to love and cherish Adela for all eternity, his thoughts couldn't help but stray to Erica. Unbeknownst to the happy couple and their guests, Erica was outside the church, hidden from view but close enough to hear the ceremony. Each word of love and devotion that echoed from within the building was like a dagger to her heart. As the church bells rang out, signaling the completion of the ceremony, Erica felt something inside her snap. The reception that followed was a joyous affair, with the entire town celebrating the union of two of its most beloved residents. Adela danced and laughed, surrounded by friends and family, while Roger played his role to perfection, ever the charming and attentive new husband. But as the night progressed and the champagne flowed freely, Roger noticed his mask sliding. Adela observed him staring off into the horizon several times, a disturbed expression on his face. When she questioned what was wrong, he dismissed her fears with a quick smile and kiss. As the newlyweds drove out for their honeymoon, tin cans rattling behind their car and well-wishes echoing in their ears, neither of them could have predicted the dark turn their lives would take. Erica Wood was already preparing her revenge from the shadows. In the weeks following Roger and Adela's wedding, Erica Wood spiraled into a pit of despair and obsession. The life she had imagined for herself, a future with Roger, had been snatched away, leaving her feeling betrayed and discarded. Her fragile psyche, already damaged by years of abandonment and instability, began to fracture under the weight of her grief and anger. At first, Erica tried to move on. She threw herself into her work, taking on more consulting projects than ever before. She attempted to socialize, accepting invitations to local gatherings and community events. But everywhere she went, she was confronted with reminders of Roger and Adela's happiness. The newlyweds were the talk of the town, their smiling faces seeming to mock Erica at every turn. As her pain deepened, Erica's behavior became increasingly erratic. She started showing up late to meetings or missing them entirely. Her appearance, once impeccable, grew disheveled. Concerned neighbors reported seeing her wandering the streets late at night, muttering to herself. But it was Erica's growing obsession with Adela that truly marked her descent into madness. She began stalking the young teacher, following her to and from work, watching her house from a distance. Erica convinced herself that if she could just understand Adela, figure out what made her so special in Roger's eyes, she could win him back. Erica's cottage became a shrine to her obsession. Walls were covered with photos of Adela cut from local newspapers and printouts from social media. She created elaborate timelines and diagrams, trying to piece together every detail of Adela's life and her relationship with Roger. Erica's fantasies became worse as the weeks and months passed. She began imagining scenarios in which Adela was absent, allowing her to recover Roger's affections. At first, these were innocent daydreams. Adela leaving or discovering she didn't love Roger after all. However, Erica's thoughts eventually shifted to murder. She spent hours researching various approaches, analyzing the benefits and drawbacks of each with distant, even clinical precision. She devised several strategies, each more sophisticated than the last, always taking care to hide her tracks and construct alibis. Erica only spoke with Roger on occasion during this time. Their encounters were brief and more hostile, with Erica alternately pleading with him to leave Adela and accusing him of betrayal. Roger became uncomfortable with Erica's intensity and began to withdraw himself, ignorant of the hazardous turn her addiction had taken. As winter settled over Flint, Erica's plans began to crystallize. She had chosen her method, a staged hit-and-run accident that would leave no trace of her involvement. In her deluded mind, she had convinced herself that eliminating Adela was not just for her own benefit, but for Roger's as well. She truly believed that he was trapped in an unhappy marriage and that she would be liberating him. The night before she planned to carry out her deadly scheme, Erica stood in front of her mirror, barely recognizing the wild-eyed woman staring back at her. For a brief moment, a flicker of doubt crossed her mind, but then she remembered the sound of wedding bells, the sight of Roger kissing his bride, and her resolve hardened once more. On a foggy Wednesday morning in February, Adela Lewis left her house for her daily jog, just as she had done countless times before. The streets were quiet, most of Flint's residents still tucked away in their warm beds. Adela, with her bright yellow running jacket and bouncing ponytail, was a spot of colour in the grey landscape. Unbeknownst to Adela, Erica Wood was waiting, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. She sat in a stolen car at the end of a secluded stretch of road, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles had turned white. As Adela's form appeared through the mist, Erica took a deep breath and turned the key in the ignition. The next few moments passed in a blur of screeching tires, a muffled scream, and the sickening thud of impact. Erica, operating on autopilot, quickly drove away from the scene, leaving Adela's crumpled body on the side of the road. It was a jogger who found Adela an hour later. By then, it was too late. Despite the best efforts of paramedics, Adela was pronounced dead at the scene. The news spread through Flint like wildfire, leaving the town reeling in shock and grief. In the immediate aftermath, Erica's plans seemed to work perfectly. The police initially treated the incident as a tragic hit-and-run accident. Erica had meticulously planned her alibi, making sure she was seen at a 24-hour diner in a neighbouring town both before and after the time of Adela's death. Roger, upon hearing the news of his wife's death, put on a convincing display of grief. He wept openly at the funeral, leaning on friends and family for support. To all outward appearances, he was a devastated widower struggling to come to terms with his loss. But as the initial shock wore off and the investigation deepened, cracks began to appear in the facade. Detective Keva Brown, assigned to the case, sensed that there was more to Adela's death than a simple accident. As she dug deeper, she began to uncover the tangled web of relationships that had led to this tragic event. Meanwhile, Erica watched from the sidelines, a mix of guilt and triumph warring within her. She had achieved her goal. Adela was gone. Now surely Roger would be hers. But as the days passed and Roger remained distant, doubt began to creep into her mind. Had she made a terrible mistake? In the weeks following Adela's death, Flint was shrouded in a pall of grief and suspicion. The once friendly neighbours now eyed each other warily, wondering if a killer walked among them. Detective Brown's investigation sent ripples through the community as she interviewed friends, family, and acquaintances of Adela. Roger Lewis maintained his role as the grieving widower, making tearful appearances on local news channels and offering a substantial reward for information leading to the arrest of Adela's killer. He threw himself into charity work in Adela's name, establishing a foundation to support local education initiatives. Erica, meanwhile, struggled to maintain her composure. The guilt of her actions weighed heavily on her, manifesting in bouts of insomnia and panic attacks. She obsessively followed the news of the investigation, terrified that each day would bring a knock on her door from the police. As Detective Brown delved deeper into Adela's life, she began to uncover inconsistencies in Roger's story. Several witnesses reported seeing him arguing with Adela in the weeks leading up to her death. Financial records showed large unexplained withdrawals from their joint account. The detective's attention also turned to Erica. Her erratic behavior in the months prior to Adela's death had not gone unnoticed, and her sudden calm in the aftermath raised suspicions. When questioned, Erica's alibi seemed airtight, but Brown sensed she was hiding something. As winter gave way to spring, Erica's initial elation at having eliminated her rival began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of uneasy. Despite her expectations, Roger had not rushed into her arms in the wake of Adela's death. In fact, he had become increasingly distant, avoiding her calls and making excuses to cancel their planned meetings. Frustrated and confused, Erica decided to confront Roger at his office after hours. As she approached the building, she noticed a light on in his window. Peering inside, she saw Roger in an intimate embrace with a woman she didn't recognize. The sight sent Erica reeling, her world crumbling around her. In that moment, the full weight of what she had done came crashing down on Erica. She had murdered an innocent woman, destroyed countless lives, all for a man who had never truly cared for her. The realization was devastating. Overwhelmed by guilt and anger, Erica stormed into Roger's office, catching him and the unknown woman by surprise. What followed was a heated confrontation, with Erica unleashing years of pent-up pain and rage. She accused Roger of using her, of manipulating her feelings to get rid of Adela. Roger, his carefully constructed facade finally cracking, didn't deny her accusations. Instead, he coldly informed Erica that she had served her purpose and was no longer needed. He threatened to expose her role in Adela's death if she didn't disappear from his life for good. Shattered and desperate, Erica fled the office, her mind racing. She now realized the true extent of Roger's manipulation and her own terrible mistake. As she drove home in a daze, Erica was unaware that her confrontation with Roger had been witnessed by someone else, someone who would soon set in motion the final act of this tragic play. The woman Erica had seen with Roger was Stella Yang, a brilliant young lawyer who had recently joined Roger's firm. Stella had been drawn into an affair with Roger, seduced by his charm and the promise of career advancement. However, unlike Erica, Stella was not blind to Roger's true nature. On the night of Erica's confrontation with Roger, Stella had hidden herself in an adjoining room, overhearing every word of their heated exchange. The revelation of Roger's involvement in his wife's death left her cold with horror and disgust. In the days that followed, Stella found herself grappling with a moral dilemma. She knew she should go to the police with what she had learned, but fear of professional repercussions and her own complicity in the affair held her back. As she observed Roger continuing to play the role of grieving widower, her revulsion grew. Determined to uncover the full truth, Stella began her own covert investigation. She meticulously combed through Roger's files and emails, slowly piecing together the extent of his deceit. What she discovered went far beyond Adela's murder, revealing a pattern of fraud and manipulation that spanned years. With each new revelation, Olivia's resolve strengthened. She knew what she had to do. Armed with the evidence she had gathered, Stella confronted Roger in his office late one evening. She laid out everything she had discovered, from his manipulation of Erica to his fraudulent business practices. Roger, realizing the precariousness of his situation, attempted to charm and threaten Stella into silence. But Stella was prepared. She had secretly recorded their entire conversation, capturing Roger's implicit admission of guilt. As she turned to leave, intending to take her evidence to the police, Roger snapped. In a moment of panic and rage, he attacked Olivia, attempting to wrestle the recording device from her hands. What Roger didn't know was that Olivia, haunted by the fate of Adela Lewis, had come prepared. In the struggle, she managed to reach into her purse and pull out a small pistol. A shot rang out, echoing through the empty office building. Roger Lewis, the man who had manipulated so many, who had indirectly caused the death of his wife and the ruin of Erica Wood, crumpled to the floor. Stella stood over him, the smoking gun still in her hand, a mix of shock and grim satisfaction on her face. As sirens wailed in the distance, Stella calmly sat down to wait for the police. She knew that her actions would have consequences, but she also knew that the truth would finally come to light. Roger Lewis's reign of deception was over. The shot that killed Roger Lewis reverberated through Flint, setting off a chain reaction that would finally bring the full story of Adela's death to light. As Stella Yang was taken into custody, the true extent of Roger's manipulations began to unravel. In the wake of Roger Lewis's death, the investigation into Adela's murder took on new urgency. Detective Brown, armed with the evidence Stella had gathered, began to piece together the full picture of events that had transpired over the past year. Erica Wood, racked with guilt and fear, finally broke down under questioning. She confessed to her role in Adela's death, providing a detailed account of her actions and motivations. Her testimony painted a damning picture of Roger's manipulation and the extent to which he had orchestrated the events leading to his wife's murder. Erica, having confessed to Adela's murder, was sentenced to life in prison. Olivia's case was more complex. She was convicted of manslaughter but received a reduced sentence due to the circumstances surrounding Roger's death. The lesson from the above case emphasizes the importance of honesty and trust in relationships. Roger Lewis, with his deceitful personality and controlling ambition, led to the ruin of many people around him. Adela Green, with his naive trust, became a victim of deception. Erica Wood, with her troubled past and her desire to be loved, was taken advantage of and eventually committed a serious crime. The case reminds us of the serious consequences of lack of honesty and trust, encouraging people to live honestly and respect each other. Follow our channel to discover thrilling and dramatic cases. Each story offers valuable life lessons and important warnings. Don't miss fascinating details and insightful analysis from famous cases.